It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Monday? We do. You do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Monday bonus podcast. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host John Riley. We're in our makeshift studios. Excuse the background, but the content will be good because we do sports talk the way it should be done. Our podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. If you've got projects for 2025, you need materials, you want ideas, these are your best friends, DIXIELINE Lumber. We're going a lot of different directions. John, we got a lot of topics on the table. Welcome back to town. You have to explain what the heck we're doing here in these brand new studios that are, quote, under construction.
They are. So, I mean, here's the deal is that we've been doing our podcast. In fact, before we hooked up, you and I've been doing my own podcasting, but it was always in our living room, which had been set up as like a media room with like blackout curtains and everything, which was great. Well, now the wife wants her living room back, and we're empty nesters, so we have empty bedrooms. So I'm converting this bedroom into a studio, but I got a lot of work to do. But at least the cameras and the microphones are working. We'll work on the background shortly.
It's not in the basement. It's not in the garage. It's not out in the driveway. We will get this right. Hey, listen, we're going to go a lot of different directions. Got a ton of topics on the table. A couple of business items. If you like sports, I invite you to check my website. I write on it every day of the week. That's the address, leehacksawhamilton.com. The best 15 minutes in sports, my one man's opinion column, as well as my Hacksaw's mini poll. So check the website. It's there every morning. You'll really like the volume of information that I provide. Second item, you're all on social media. I want you to become a member of my Twitter All-Star team on X. Real simple. Type in my handle at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button at Hacksaw1090. Thirdly, hey, want you to share, tell everybody in your address book who we are, what we do, Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m., and want you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you will get the alerts every time we put something new up on the YouTube channel, which is quite often during the course of the week. And when we're done talking about my topics on the table with John, you're going to get the chance to take over this podcast. He invented it. It's his fault that it works. If it doesn't work, it's his fault nonetheless. John Riley's invention was what we call Fans Forum. Go ahead.
Yeah, Fans Forum. This is your chance to get a question in with Hacksaw in the world of sports. Just leave your take in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum.
So we're going a lot of different directions. We got a ton of topics, a lot of controversial stuff to talk about in the world of sports, and you'll be with us at the end. Fans Forum, so you can get into the chat box early. Pick any topic that we're putting here. If there's something else you want to add, feel free to jump on board. John, the floor is yours. Where do you want to start?
Okay, well, the college football playoffs were something here, and this is going to be a lot to talk about.
Yeah, college football. Oh, nice headline. Blowouts and bad choices. I had great expectations. Did not pan out the way I thought it would. Each of the games was really lopsided. Period, exclamation point. Nobody's talking about the games. Everybody's beefing about what happened in the aftermath of the selections, and this is the end result. Let's just go team by team. Ohio State destroys Tennessee in their first game. 3 touchdowns in an 11-minute span. Buckeyes superior. They were obviously focused in. They had 2 weeks to prepare for what the Volunteers had to do. Tennessee's quarterback was just overwhelmed. Tennessee lost its running back the second series in, never really came back. Buckeyes just bombed them. Here's the burning question, John. Where the hell was this game plan? Where was Chip Kelly 2 weeks ago when they lost at home to Michigan in the plant the flag post-game brouhaha? I mean, this looked like a drastically different Ohio State team than the game they played prior, the ugly loss to the Michigan Wolverines. What do you think about Buckeyes?
I just think that the game against Michigan, it's so emotional. It's the big rivalry. And so they probably just froze a bit. But now we're seeing the real Ohio State. And I was curious about Tennessee They were the sort of the unknown team of the 12, but, Ohio State rolled them.
Penn State just stomps SMU. 2 picks, 6 touchdowns in the first quarter. Kevin Jennings just got run over. I kept saying all season long, athletically, this was the best Penn State football team I think I've seen athletically, offense, defense, special teams, going back to the Paterno era. They really, really played well. Penn State right now is a very scary side. Your thoughts on what Penn State did to SMU?
Wasn't the fan base there was fantastic. I mean, they were so fired up there. And my buddy and I were watching the game, and we were wondering, is Happy Valley like the general community, or is it the name of the stadium, or what is that?
Well, it's Beaver Stadium. Happy Valley is the region north of Harrisburg into the mountains.
Okay.
It's just called Happy Valley. I broadcast from there. It's unique. It's eclectic. It's got its own lifestyle and personality. It is mega college town. But on Saturdays, 102,000 wearing white.
Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable. But Beaver Stadium, that must go back to like a history of the beaver pelts and all that. But it is confusing about the stadium name.
Yeah. Third game, Texas Clemson. I thought it was going to be a better game, a more balanced game, but it was not. Longhorns are really good. Quinn Ewers, 2 running backs went over 100 yards. Their defense is their defense. Although I would have to say this, Cade Klubnik, the young quarterback for Clemson, he threw for 336 against a Longhorns football team. But Texas Sarkisian has flipped that thing in about a 2-year span. That's a true national power at Texas.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot more of a lopsided game than we expected. I was rooting for SMU to show something, and it's just nothing was there.
Notre Dame wallops Indiana. Battle of the Hoosier State. Touchdown Jesus beat the frauds. That's what one of the headlines read. Notre Dame was dominant. Indiana played as poorly and got pummeled as badly in this game as they did in the final game of the season against Ohio State. But to call them a fraud, that's not fair because they had 11 wins to start the campaign. But man, Notre Dame whacked them in every conceivable way. 98-yard touchdown run right at the beginning of the game. Riley Leonard throws for 205. They just manhandled them. 393 yards total offense for those guys. That was pretty impressive, Notre Dame. And Indiana kind of all caught up to them. They're not a national power in terms of national powers.
Well, think about how big of progress Indiana made. I mean, they took a huge leap forward. That coach, if he sticks around, I think can start building that program because they had, I think, the largest margin of victory on average in NCAA. But clearly, that was against teams not in the top 25.
They did not beat a top 25 team all year.
Yeah, exactly.
Strength of schedule became an argument. Okay, so nobody's talking about the games. They're talking about the selection process. They're talking about what the College Football Playoff Committee needs to do to make this better or fix this as if something is really wrong. John, this is on you. You're the one who was screaming, let's go to 12 teams. And I kept saying, you go to 12, you're going to have blowouts. We're going to have 50-7 games. Well, we had 4 blowouts here. TV ratings. They got their ass kicked.
Really?
By the NFL. I was really surprised.
The NFL, yeah.
TV ratings. Ohio State had the biggest, 6.3 million for their game. That's a brand issue. Second biggest one, Notre Dame, 5.7 million viewership. Third one, Texas, which stunned me, only 3.6 million. Maybe it's because people just don't like anything related to the state of Texas. And the least watched game was Penn State, 3.1 million. But that was Penn State, that was SMU. Those are regionalized things. So they didn't do well in head-to-head competition against the 2 NFL games on Saturday. Here's the statement. Here's the question about we have to change this. Everybody's dissatisfied. Like I said, John, nobody's talking about the games. They're talking about the playoff committee and why did you do this, etc. So the Power 4 conferences, champions, all got in. They got the buys. Instead of that, there's a theory, after you select the 12, rank the 12, seed the 12, rather than just give automatic buys to the conference champion. In essence, they're saying, Boise State's equal to what we just saw. That's the big issue. They're going to evidently argue about that. Second item, although the games were sold out, there were 3 of the 4 games had crowds over 100,000. They're screeching that it's a playoff and it's unfair to the team that has to go into Happy Valley, team that has to go in to play at Austin. They want neutral sites. So there's a second arguing point there. And now the third arguing point, okay, so now we're down to 8. The third arguing point is before we go play the second round, they should reseed who's still alive. Everybody's saying, gee, isn't it a shame Oregon has to play Ohio State in the second round? That if you seeded it. So, John, you're judge and jury. You wanted this bloody thing to go to 12 teams. So after the selections are made, should they seed them? Or do you give the conference champion the bye? After the selections are made, should they reseed them after the opening round of the playoffs? And do you like neutral site versus you got to go into somebody's angry stadium and play?
Well, first of all, I think they should have expand this to 16 or even 32 teams.
Oh, they'd be barking and bitching even more.
Yeah, I mean, make it bigger. I mean, the NCAA March Madness already has the formula. They seed them going in, and they don't reseed them after each round, which I wouldn't agree with. Just seed them going in. That was a good suggestion. I like the neutral site suggestion. I still think that the lower tier bowls would be perfect for these quarterfinal or round of whatever. The early games could be in the Tangerine Bowl or the Holiday Bowl on a neutral location. But I was hoping there would be at least one upset on Saturday that didn't happen. So now I'm really rooting for Boise State because I love the idea of these smaller programs getting in because I'm sick and tired of Alabama and Ohio State every friggin' year.
I think a lot of people were getting tired of the same old of the marquee teams, but should we not be realistic that the 85 scholarship players at Ohio State or Notre Dame or Texas or Penn State, those 95 are better than anybody else's 95?
Oh, yeah, of course they are.
So you can't have, this is not the reinvention of March Madness because you're only playing 5 basketball players. Here you're playing your top 22. They're all 4- and 5-star guys against somebody who's not quite equal to you. That's why the disparity occurs.
Well, I will always remember the Boise State-Oklahoma game with the hook and ladder. That was 10 years ago?
Once in a lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, that was good stuff. So just follow the format. Basketball is already laid out. It's proven. It works. Just do that, and I think we'll be fine. And by the way, if you expanded it to 16 or 32, then teams like Alabama that were complaining that they didn't get in would have gotten in.
So Alabama, South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Miami are really barking 2 days after the playoffs saying, see, we should have been there.
Yeah, make it 16, and all 4 of them would have been in there.
Oh, John, you're expanding this way too far.
No.
All right, so you got an opinion? Hey, you're a college football fan. Blowouts, bad choices, or just the way it is because you got a couple of teams that are in their own galaxy, led by the Oregon Ducks and the ones that obviously marched through the first round. Fans Forum chat box is open. Second college football topic on the table.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little Aztec football. Looks like they got some guys signed.
Yeah, they're rolling. Now, brand new roster. Second year, Sean Lewis. They've signed 17 transfers in 2 weekends since the season ended. Again, a lot of new names. They're going to have to digest a new playbook. This will be a reincarnation of what we went through last year in spring football. New faces learning on the job. But I will say this. They got themselves 2 quarterbacks. One's a transfer from Michigan who's hardly ever played, Jaden Denigal. The second one is E.J. Manuel, or Bert Emanuel, son of an NFL player. He's played bits and pieces as a role player quarterback, sometimes starter, first guy off the bench in Central Michigan. 6'5", I bet he's a starting quarterback next season. So they get Bert Emanuel from Central Michigan to go with Denigal, who came from the University of Michigan. They got a really good wide receiver from the Mid-American Conference, Trey Rudolph, 115 catches over the course of his career. Got a really serviceable running back. His name is Christian Washington. Went to New Mexico, wound up at Coastal Carolina, which is a really good 1AA power. They got 4 offensive linemen through the transfer portal, including 1 from Michigan State, 1 from Arizona, couple more tight ends, including 1 from Texas A&M. So there's a lot of names, guys have had success other places, led by Manuel, the multi-dimension quarterback. But we're buying on faith that Aztec fast is going to work, because last year it didn't work and it was 3-9. So huge uncertainty. But he's been active and he's gotten some guys from some big-time programs. But new faces, new places, new playbook. This is going to be a learning curve for the second year in a row for Sean Lewis. And John Riley says,
this is good news. I mean, this is just the evolution of it. I'd imagine a brand new coach first year, the recruiting's got to be really difficult, really volatile and sporadic. And now, he's probably had, his coaches out recruiting for months and months and months. Now he can start bearing some of that fruit. That's good news. And frankly, there's nowhere to go but up. And now they got the quarterback. So I'm willing to give Sean Lewis plenty of slack in the leash, because I want to see him build it. He just needs a chance to do that.
Why I believe in him, and I'm taking a lot of heat from people, why I believe in him is I see track record. I know what he did at Kent State, which was one of the dismal programs in the Mid-American Conference. And obviously we saw in the first season at Colorado how vibrant they could be with really big-time players, and that evolved into the second year where the Buffaloes had a great season. It's going to take some time here at San Diego State. You tell me. Fans Forum is open. Chat box. Like, dislike, backing Sean Lewis, San Diego State. Feel free to jump on board here when we're done with topics on the table. I'd like to hear from Aztec and college football fans. Sidebar, 22 players this year went into the portal from San Diego State, on top of the 42 that went in right after he got hired last year. That's kind of stunning to lose that many players in a program.
It is stunning, but I think it's important to understand that this is happening everywhere. So you can't really point a finger at Sean Lewis about this so much. I think we're just going through a new era in college football, and that's why there's been so much controversy. So give him time. I think he can build this.
On we go. All things college football. Turn the page. Let's talk about the NFL.
The NFL. Okay, here we go. Big games over the weekend. Kansas City and the Chargers to talk about.
Kansas City's best football is still ahead of them. And for the first time all season, every one of the marquee guys who was hurt in Kansas City is now back on the active roster. Now, Patrick Mahomes, playing on a high ankle sprain, gutted it out. He's a tough hombre. Kansas City is now 14-1 on the season. It's now more than Mahomes and Travis Kelce. If you watch this weekend's game on Saturday, who did he throw to? Hollywood Brown, just off injured reserve, caught a bunch of passes. Who did he throw to? J.J. Schuster-Smith, street free agent, makes big plays. Who did he throw to? DeAndre Hopkins, who came in a trade. And, of course, they got 3 running backs that are now healthy. So Kansas City, as I say, I think their best football is just ahead of them now that they got all the injured guys. Chargers. That was quite a win Thursday night against the Denver Broncos. Or should I say the Denver Broncos committed suicide on the field and lost the game that they were winning and likely to blow out. The Chargers are sitting there now at 9-6 with 2 very winnable games at New England, at the Raiders, who have a combined record of 6-24. So the Chargers probably finish with 11 wins. Maybe they get a home wild card game, but then they have to go on the road. Justin Herbert, he's making all these plays, playing on one leg. Pass protection continues to be shabby. What the hell we saw with him throwing sidearm, going down and making passes, throwing to the back of the end zone out of desperation, passes being caught, and the 57-yard free kick field goal after Denver committed a stupid penalty on the final play of the second quarter. So the Chargers won that game, but Denver committed suicide on the field, and it's going to haunt Denver. As good a job as Sean Payton has done, his team loses its composure again. And now because of this, they're the ones that have to go to Buffalo and probably play in a wild card game. So the Bolts get that victory. Very briefly elsewhere, Philadelphia got whacked by Washington. All of a sudden, the Eagles got injury problems. Jalen Hurts, head first smash on the turf, a concussion. They don't know the extent of it as to whether he can play next weekend or not. Then his backup, Kenny Pickett, got hurt, may have a cracked rib. So suddenly Philadelphia's got some issues. in the aftermath of the loss to Washington. And how about Jaden Daniels? He just does it Sunday by Sunday. 5 touchdown passes yesterday, 339 all-purpose yards for, I think, the rookie of the year in the NFL,
Oh, yeah.
the Commanders quarterback, Jaden Daniels. What a great, great Baltimore win over Pittsburgh. I mean, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, just way too much firepower. You know, Steelers got 10 wins. I don't know how many more they're going to win. They could be in trouble because their offense just doesn't have enough bullets in the gun. Minnesota wins in Seattle. Sam Darnold's people are asking the Vikings for $25 million a year on a contract extension. Many thought he was a one-and-done rental. Minnesota announced this morning, we are going to open negotiations with Sam Darnold.
Good.
Darnold's got 31 touchdowns this season. Of course, if you throw into Jefferson and Addison, I guess you'd complete a few passes in the end zone. Those guys are really, really good. The Rams willed themselves to a victory against the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, and the weatherman. It was 19 degrees, and the wind was howling at the Meadowlands. Matthew Stafford only threw for 110, but Kyron Williams showed up and powered for over 100. And the defense, Rams defense was superb, coming up with picks, sacks, tackles for losses. Rams will themselves to a victory in a really cold stadium. That thing's on the flat plains in New Jersey in the winter, and that wind rolls in there and goes round and round and round. That's a really tough place to play. How about the Rams? They were 1-4. They are now 8-2 since that 1-4 start when they had all the injuries. What a job by Sean McVay. Detroit pummels Chicago. Their defense was superb. Lions are 13-2 on the season. Jared Goff is putting up numbers like nobody ever imagined Jared Goff could ever do. You know, a week ago, he threw for 490-something and 5 touchdowns. Yesterday goes for 336 and 3 more touchdown passes. Wow. What a season Jared Goff's having. And the Cowboys on Sunday night outduel Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay. How about that young Cowboy secondary made up of kids? Comes up with an interception in the end zone. The next possession comes up with a strip sack fumble recovery to stop a Tampa Bay Baker Mayfield comeback. And Jerry Jones louds Mike McCarthy. Those players have won 4 of their last 5. They've probably saved Mike McCarthy's job. So, John, that's a summary of what we saw this weekend in the marquee games around the NFL. Go ahead. Just tell me I was wrong about all the stuff I said.
Well, I want to go to the Chargers for a minute because you're right. I think if they're going to likely win the last 2 games, an 11-win season. What was their record last year?
Can you say 5-12 got everybody fired?
Yeah. So this is a big step forward. And we were all worried that they didn't have the skill players and the wide receiver or the running back. But
I'm still worried.
Well, yeah, you should be still worried. But Jim Harbaugh made a big difference in year number 1. I mean, that's amazing.
Well, Justin Herbert's made the bigger difference because he's making all the plays without a lot of help. He's got no running game. That offensive line does not protect him. He's been sacked like 41 or 42 times. He's running for his life. He's playing on one leg. He's got 3 injuries to that one leg, and he keeps making plays. Well, he's a warrior. He's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, and I agree. He's terrific to watch. We'll see how they do in the playoffs. Let's talk about the Vikings for a minute with Sam Darnold. Now, let's just assume that he signed $25 million a year or whatever it is. And by the way, he deserves that. He's proven that. So if you have a $25 million a year quarterback, are you going to start J.J. McCarthy or are you going to start Sam Darnold next year?
Well, remember, McCarthy's coming off a real severe meniscus surgery, 6-month rehab. I mean, it just was a minor tear. This was a full tear in the knee. So he's going to have to go through all the OTAs and preseason and not have any physical setbacks because this meniscus surgery was significant. Sometimes you snip it and the guy's back in 4 weeks. This was major. And so he will have almost a full calendar year to fully recover, but we'll see what kind of quarterback he is because then he's got to go through the learning curve. This is the NFL, pal. This is not Michigan where you hand the football off and you play behind all these number 1 draft picks. So I mean, Darnold, the resurrection of Darnold's career by Kevin O'Connell, that's fabulous. And the fact at $25 million, that's a bargain compared to what these other quarterbacks have had. Now, if he goes on the open market, he probably gets $25 million from somewhere else. He's not going to get $40 million.
No.
He's not going to Dak Prescott type money.
No.
But his resurrection, right guy, right time, right playbook. That's kind of interesting.
Well, Kevin O'Connell, they call him a quarterback whisperer, so he's made a big difference. I mean, he was obviously had better production with Kirk Cousins last year than what Cousins is doing in Atlanta. So good on O'Connell. The last comment I want to talk about are the Chiefs. You were saying that maybe Mahomes should have sat this game. You were worried about the ankle. How do you think he looked in terms of his injury, and should he play the final 2 games?
I'm sitting there watching him scramble out of the pocket and run on a high ankle sprain. Run? You're kidding me. I just concerned in the pocket. Can you max protect him so he's not taking shots? And he's jumping out of containment and running around. I had 35, 45 yards scrambling out of trouble. Yeah, he's a tough guy. And B, I was pretty impressed how productive he is. And now you add into the equation, look who's back off IR. Now suddenly he's got all the bullets in the gun at the most important time of the year. That wide receiver core with the tight ends led by Travis Kelce and the 3 running backs, that looks like a pretty good collective group.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and then there's no way they're going to lose the number 1 seed now, I don't think, right?
No.
So, beware of the Chiefs. It could be a three-peat.
And this Dallas story, we've been talking about Mike McCarthy, Jerry Jones, what's wrong with the Cowboys, and look how these guys have rallied. And they were out of the playoffs. They knew before they played that Sunday night game they were done, they'd been eliminated, and they went out and they just went to war with Tampa Bay. I was so impressed.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see that. I mean, if you're Jerry Jones, you're thinking, okay, there is hope. But do you think they saved McCarthy's job, or would he still jettison him?
No, I think he's a lock.
Oh, right on.
So that's where we are. That's all things NFL. You got an opinion? Fans Forum chat box is open. Once you're done listening to what we have to say, we want to hear what you've got to say. Fans Forum chat box is open. We get to halftime. Our Monday bonus podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations in San Diego. The new one that has just opened in Dana Point. You got projects for 2025, whether it's in our reconstructed studio, whether it's in your lobby at work, whether it's in the living room, the family room, your man cave. You got projects. DIXIELINE Lumber is there to help you with materials and with ideas. Do business where we do business. DIXIELINE Lumber.
DIXIELINE.
Must tell you, I love my Milgard windows. I got them from DIXIELINE Lumber. This guy's house has been built by DIXIELINE Lumber. Okay, second half, just a couple of program reminders. If you like what we're doing, you'll like my website. I write on my sports website every day of the week. It's LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Invite you to jump on board, check it first thing every morning. You won't believe the amount of information there. By the way, on the homepage of the website, there's an orange box. Fill it out. Get on the email list. Join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. You're on social media. I want you to join my Twitter All-Star team. You can do that on X. That way you'll get all the alerts of different things that I put up on Twitter. Just use my handle at Hacksaw1090, Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button. Want you to share, want you to subscribe, tell everybody what we do on the podcast Mondays and Thursdays. And if you subscribe on the YouTube channel, you'll get the alerts every time we put something up on the YouTube channel, which is a lot of different days and nights in the middle of the nights of the week. We're loading stuff up there all the time. And when we're done with topics on the table, Fans Forum, you take over the podcast. John, just explain to the newbies how this works.
Yeah, the newbies. So if you got a comment or question in the world of sports for Hacksaw, drop your take in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum at the conclusion of Hacksaw's headlines.
Program note. This week, of course, is Christmas week. We're normally on Thursdays at 1 p.m. We are going to push it to Friday. We'll be back here Friday at 1 p.m., heading towards the next great sports weekend of college football playoff games and all things in the NFL with 2 weeks left in the season. So Friday, 1 p.m., coming out of the holiday this week alone.
Isn't it interesting? Like, this is sort of this kind of chill week, you know, where on one level, sports still going. a lot of sports podcasters taking time off, but you're the hardest working man in the business. You're still going through the Christmas holiday.
You're all right. We are bleeping brilliant. Yes, thank you. Okay, let's move to the second half. Our Monday bonus podcast, baseball. It just never ends, John. On and on and on, and there's more stories and more stories.
Yeah, and there's been a bunch of transactions even today.
Yeah. Let's talk about hot topics on the table. Big money, big rumors. We got Major League Baseball to talk about, and we're going to zero in and start, obviously, on the transactions that have happened. The Dodgers are in the headlines. Major League Baseball just handed out the bill. You know, you tell the wife, if you buy this on my credit card, I will have to pay this. The bill for Dodger baseball has led to a record $103 million luxury tax bill. Wow. The Dodgers will pay an all-time high $103 million because their combined payroll was $353 million this past season. That includes salary, and that includes benefits for every player that's under contract. That was their total expenses. So the Dodgers owe $103 million. The New York Mets, second most expensive luxury tax bill, $97 million. The Yankees were a distant third at 62%. Here's the addendum. Here's the asterisk mark to that. Because the Dodgers have been over this luxury tax thing 3 times in a row, the Dodgers are over it again this year. They pay 110% tax. For every dollar spent going forward now, the Dodgers will pay 110% tax on every player they sign from this point on.
That means everything's going to cost at least more than double.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So that's interesting there. Elsewhere, Dodgers talked to the Cardinals about Nolan Arenado. However, they asked St. Louis to pay a share of the $54 million that Arenado is owed. St. Louis said no. Dodgers said end of conversation. Maybe they revisit it. The Dodgers have opened talks with Anthony Santander, power hitting outfielder, Baltimore. Problem is he wants a 5-year deal. I don't know that the Dodgers are going to do that. The Dodgers have opened trade talks with the White Sox for young, slumping, off-injured outfielder Luis Robert. Might be potential of a deal there. The Dodgers are talking to the Cubs about CU Suzuki, the Japanese outfielder who's been in Wrigley Field for the last 2 years. They might have an acquisition they can make there. Meanwhile, Dodgers lost Walker Buehler today, signed with the Red Sox. 1 year, $21 million, plus incentives. I'm a little bit surprised. He's 44-27. He saved him in the World Series. He went 13 straight shutout innings against the Padres, and then obviously into the World Series. A little bit disappointed the Dodgers let him go because, tell you what, he was a warrior. I mean, he was a passionate guy on the mound. A little bit surprised the Dodgers let him go. Now, granted, the Dodgers have been very active, the Blake Snell acquisition, et cetera, et cetera. So those are all things there as it relates to Dodger baseball. And they've really kind of stolen the headlines. The Padres have done nothing.
Yeah.
That kind of really surprises me because the second tier of pitchers, John, on our list of free agents, second tier, those guys are starting to come off the board too. So the Padres, it's obvious that ownership has told them, this is all you can spend. You have to rearrange the dollars. This is all you can spend. I was told over the weekend by somebody from within that they're shopping Luis Arraez. Toronto is trying to make a deal to get another bat. Maybe that's where Arraez winds up. I was told that at this point, Dylan Cease is not going to Baltimore and is not going to Boston because Boston's already got Garrett Crochet and now they've added Buehler. I was told that maybe the Padres just offer Dylan Cease arbitration, let him stay, start. If he has a banner year, that means the Padres may be in the pennant race. If he doesn't do well, or the club doesn't do well, you could always trade him at the deadline. And so that's where the Padres are at this point in time. So your comment on the Dodgers, your comments on the Padres who've done zero.
Yeah, it is a big zero for the Padres. For the Dodgers, though, has there been any news on Teoscar Hernandez? I mean, is he going to sign with the LA?
Talks have stalled.
Really?
Yeah, they're stalled over the fact he wants 3 years, big money. They want 2 years, maybe an option, but no, he's still in the running in Baltimore. He might be in the running at Fenway Park because they're going to add one more bat in each of those clubs.
But that's what the Dodgers need, are outfielders, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting, too, that Walker Buehler left. But I think, you know, Walker Buehler kind of turned out to be the odd man out because there's still, like, how many pitchers? They've got like 7 or 8 starters already.
Yeah, they got about half those guys that are carrying into spring training injury woes. You know, have they recovered from the surgery? A bunch of those guys sat out chunks of the season. Buehler, as rugged as last year was, look what he did postseason. Look what he did, 13 straight shutout innings for them.
Yeah, well, I'm not breaking out the violin for the Dodgers. They're going to be just fine. But it is amazing that they've gone so far over the luxury tax. I assume that Cohen was and the Mets were the ones that were at the top of the list for the luxury tax violation.
Cohen's talking to the Cardinals about Arenado. Cohen's still talking to Pete Alonso. There's other guys out there. Cohen just signed Sean Manaea to a contract extension to bring him back. I'm sorry. If there's any Met fans out here on this podcast, I don't like your pitching staff at all. You got Juan Soto. I can't stand your pitching staff. I don't think you have anywhere near enough arms, despite all the arms you have under contract right now. So that's where we are with the Dodgers. That's where we are with the Padres. Next topic on the table involves balls, strikes, and contracts.
Yeah, a lot of action. Look at all these other teams in the mix.
Yeah, let's talk about what happened over the weekend in baseball. The Astros, out of nowhere, signed Christian Walker, first baseman, former catcher, Arizona Diamondbacks. Many thought he was going to Yankee Stadium. 3 years, $60 million for Christian Walker. He becomes an Astro. Now they got to make a decision. Can they get Bregman re-signed? At this point, the talks have stalled. Yankees looking for a first baseman, rent Paul Goldschmidt. He takes a pay cut, leaves the St. Louis Cardinals. It's going to be interesting to see because Goldie's been a rock-solid, cornerstone, trustworthy veteran. Might be headed to the sunset of his career. But if you put really good people around him in the batting order, maybe he has a bounce-back year. Yankees get Paul Goldschmidt. Arizona, after losing Goldschmidt, makes a trade with Cleveland. I don't understand the salary dump in Cleveland. Arizona gets Josh Naylor, the first baseman, power hitter. What did he hit? 31 home runs last season. A little bit of a substandard batting average year, but Josh Naylor is the power bat at first base in Arizona. Cleveland, after letting Naylor go, signs Carlos Santana. He's older than Methuselah, but the dude did hit 22 home runs last season. He's played for everybody. Cleveland, Seattle, Minnesota. They brought him back to the Guardians. Boston gets Buehler, signs Patrick Sandoval. At one point, many thought was going to be the ace of the Angels staff. They got him on a 2-year affordable contract at $12 million per season. He goes to Fenway Park. And the third guy who's going to be new to that rotation is a guy who got hurt last year, Lucas Giolito. So all of a sudden, Boston's got 3 starting pitchers walking through the front door right at Christmas time to go with a collection of really good young arms that they forced out there last season. Boston's starting to look like a scary baseball team. Phillies add insurance policy pitching. They get Jesus Luzardo, at one time very highly regarded Oakland A's left-hander, went to Miami, very competitive, fierce guy, had elbow and shoulder issues. He passed his physical, so he's gone to Philadelphia. So as we sit here right now, Pete Alonso, the Mets, does not have a place to play. Maybe it's back at Citi Field. Maybe it's somewhere else. Bregman has not signed. And I'm wondering if Scott Boras is going to do what he did last year. Just hold this guy out, see if other people jump in. I'm surprised Bregman's not signed. Houston doesn't seem very confident that they're going to be able to bring him back. So, John, you got baseball there to talk about. What do you want to cover?
What do I want to cover? I mean, look at those names on the list. First of all, the Astros and Christian Walker. Obviously, he'll play first base, but wasn't Yordan Alvarez playing first, or was he the DH there?
DH, and they've not been able to keep Alvarez on the field. He's just had all types of injury problems, knees and foot, etc. So he's not an everyday fielder, but he can obviously swing the stick.
And I like your take about Goldschmidt going to the Yankees, surround him with a lot of talent. That's a good move. The Diamondbacks, the Josh Naylor thing was weird because you say it was a salary dump, But then how do you turn around and sign Carlos Santana? I mean, how much of a salary transfer is that? It's probably nets to very little difference.
Yeah, Naylor was making $9. Why would you dump him? Unless you got something in return, but they didn't get a frontline starting pitcher, which kind of surprised me. The Santana, I think, was less than what Naylor was making, but he's 39 years of age. He could wake up an old man pretty quick. So that's where we are, all things baseball.
Did you do I did a double take when I saw the Red Sox sign Patrick Sandoval, because all I could think about was Pablo Sandoval. And remember when the Red Sox signed him and
Panda Bear.
Yeah, the Panda Bear. And remember, he couldn't fit into his uniform and he broke his belt. That was just a comedy of errors. So at least they got a different Sandoval in Boston.
Let's talk about the other baseball story, because this one surprised a lot of people and baseball won't stop talking about him. Rickey Henderson, spectacular player, eclectic personality, has passed away at the age of 65. He played for 9 different teams. Rickey Henderson played 24 years in Major League Baseball. And everybody remembers Rickey Henderson, stolen bases, breaking the Lou Brock record and all that. You know, he was a lifetime 284 hitter, 297 home runs, including 81 leadoff home runs in a game, all-time record, probably never ever to be broken. 1,406 stolen bases. Do you know the wear and tear factor, stealing bases for that many years? Never seemed to bother him. 3,055 hits, scored almost 2,300 runs. Now, the stories about Rickey are through the roof.
Yeah, they are.
We could take a whole podcast just to talk. I'll just run some things by you. I dealt with him a little bit while I was covering the Padres. He always referred to himself in the third person.
Love that.
And I always, you'd ask him about what you did in this game. And the response would be, well, Rickey thought I could steal on this left-handed pitcher, so Rickey stole the base. Always third person. I started calling him Rickey himself. Interesting guy. You've heard the story about his bonus check.
Oh, yeah.
The $1 million. He got a $1 million free agent signing check. I don't know if it was from the Yankees or the Mets. And the check never got cashed. And he was screwing up the bookkeeping. I might have been the Mets. And they called him and said, was the check misplaced? Did you lose it? Did you ever cash it? He said, no. I framed it. I put it up on my wall. Well, you got to sign the check to put it in your bank account. And there was the story in Toronto. His teammate was John Olerud, first baseman, played collegiately at Washington State, wore a helmet in the field because he had a head injury and brain issue. So he wore that as a protection. So Rickey's his teammate at the end of his career, might have been in Seattle, and Rickey's talking to him, why do you wear that helmet? And John explains, because of the head injury in college and the minor leagues. And Rickey says, oh, yeah, I had another teammate like that. It was the same guy. He had totally forgotten he had been a teammate to John Olerud. Back in the 1990s, baseball did a throwback weekend where they honored old teams of yesteryear. Everybody wore throwback jerseys. So the Oakland A's wore these, I think it might have been the Sacramento Solons jerseys in the old Pacific Coast League. Mm-hmm. To celebrate, so Rickey's out in the outfield in the first inning. So they get, the side is out, and to celebrate, Rickey takes his glove, just throws it and leaves it out in right field and runs in. And people said, why'd you do that? He says, well, it's throwback weekend. Back in the day, that's what they used to do. The outfielders just throw their glove on the field and leave it, and then go out and pick it up next inning. And then he was about to break one of the many records he set. This was a Ty Cobb record for home runs. Of course, Cobb was electric as a base stealer. Rickey said, if I hit a home run here and break Cobb's record, I will come around third and I will slide into home plate. And he did. And the Oakland A's dugout erupted. I saw the video of it this morning. It's really funny. Rickey himself was really a different player. What a great player. But Rickey himself was really a diverse personality. I sat in the dugout one time and just listened to him talking about stealing. And it wasn't like he studied videos, but he had intelligence to look at pitchers' pickoff moves during the course of a game and say, I can steal that on that left-hander. Damn, he did too. So what an unbelievably unique guy. Rickey Henderson leaves us at age, actually, he's going to be 65 on Christmas Day. He passes away. So, John, you're a Bay Area guy. Were you a pro-Rickey himself or an anti-Rickey himself?
Rickey Henderson is one of my favorite players of all time. I've always loved him. I've loved him forever because he's a unicorn in terms of how he plays the game. People say he's the greatest leadoff hitter of all time. I mean, you could make a case he's one of the greatest players of all time, but there was nobody that could affect the game the way that he did. And I remember when the A's played the Toronto Blue Jays in the early 90s in the playoffs, I mean, he was so disruptive on the bases. He did, and then he later went and played, I think, for the Blue Jays and did similar things for them. But he set records, the Ty Cobb one, I think it was runs, not home runs, but he set the record for runs, and he got 3,000 hits, and he had the stolen base record. It's so awesome what he accomplished. And you forget that he played for the Mariners and the Red Sox and even the Dodgers. It's just weird seeing him in those uniforms. But I like him as a person because he came from a difficult circumstances. He that $1 million check that he framed to him was a sign that he made it, that he was legit. And so the fact that he came from humble beginnings and turned into become a superstar was great. The third person talk is funnier than anything. And like people would say that players on the team would Rickey would strike out and he'd come back to the dugout and they'd hear him saying to himself, they go, Rickey, all right. Rickey struck out, but Rickey's going to get him next time because you're the greatest, Rickey.
Third person.
Yeah. And he just had this self-confidence. And then he talked about being the greatest. He wanted to be the greatest. And who was one of his idols was Muhammad Ali, who was also the greatest. Who they're like two of my favorite sports superstars. So as a Bay Area guy, I loved him with the A's. I even loved his couple of years here in San Diego. But shocking, he died only at the age of 65.
He had pneumonia and didn't recover.
That's just tragic. It's so sad.
Here's the most interesting thing. Of all the stats that are posted there in the Hall of Fame, and the 284 career batting average, do you know what he hit in October in a World Series? 339. Rickey himself, in the most important time of the year in World Series play, hit 339. What a spectacular player.
Just awesome, And I just love when he would hit a home run and he'd do that run around first base and he'd kind of be doing this with his jersey and just everything about it. And he was a guy that could be a showboat, but you didn't hate him for it. You loved him for it. At least I did. And I think so many of the players I've heard these interviews on the MLB channel over the weekend. Steve Sachs was talking about his time with Rickey in New York and saying this guy was such a cool guy. He was chill. He was a family man. He was a guy that supported his teammates. And while he did have that bravado and showtime, as a dude, as a regular guy, he was approachable, he was friendly, and he was a great teammate.
Yeah. Rickey himself, gone to heaven. Cool guy. Last topic on the table before we get to Fans Forum. John, we're going all over the road with this one.
Yeah, the high-speed sports wire. Got some Lakers news.
Yeah, let's start with the Lakers. The Lakers evidently are about to make a trade. Who's going out the door? They have offered Rui Hachimura. They've offered D'Angelo Russell. They've offered Gabe Vincent. People are asking for one of their number one picks in a deal. They've just reopened trade talks. I don't know why they need him, but obviously he's a proven veteran with Washington for Kyle Kuzma. They might bring him back. Would Hachimura and a draft pick to Washington for Kuzma make sense? They're talking to Utah about their big center. Utah's really having a miserable season with all the young players they've kind of stockpiled. They're talking to the Jazz about Walker Keeler. And they're talking to Portland about backup center, former Boston Celtic, Robert Williams. So there looks like there's going to be a trade involving the Lakers. Right now they're at 16-12, I think it is, or 16-13. They still have a defensive hole in the middle on the floor, so there's a potential deal there. Hockey, New York Rangers. This is bad. I wish the hell we had good leadership at the NHL level with Gary Bettman. The junk that is going on, this headhunting stuff, is miserable. Chicago's number one draft pick, Connor Bedard, the teenage sensation last year. He's been hurt a lot. I saw a Blackhawks game. He took 3 shots to the face and jaw this past weekend in back-to-back games. And this is a kid that shattered his jaw when he got hit by a shot last year. And to me, that's intent to knock this guy out of the game. That's brutal. Anyhow, New York Rangers mean streak forward Matt Rempe has been suspended for 8 games after a brutal hit on a Dallas Stars player at center ice, left his feet, hit him with a forearm in the back of the head, face first into the boards. Oh. It's his 4th match misconduct in 22 games in his career. He's been hit with an 8-game suspension, $80,000 fine. Next one will be a 16-game suspension. The headhunting in the league, to me, is disgraceful. And the league just lets this junk go on and on and on. Vancouver, the surprise highlight team of the playoffs last year, they got internal problems, really tough. They had goaltending problems. They had 3 goaltenders hurt. They're all finally back, led by Thatcher Demko from Scripps Ranch, is finally back healthy. But they had an implosion on the bench a couple weeks ago with one of their captains, JT Miller, and the coach, Rick Tocchet. I hate to use the term on our podcast, but they're both kind of red asses. But evidently, there was an exchange on the bench between JT Miller and the coach, and JT Miller got removed from the roster, was gone for 3 weeks counseling. Now there's been a follow-up incident involving JT Miller and Elias Pettersson, their high-priced, big-scoring forward, over responsibility of pass me the puck when I'm open in front of the net, don't go down there and just take a shot. Evidently, there was a confrontation in the locker room. So Rick Tocchet, who's a fiery guy as a coach, held a team meeting on the weekend, and he told these guys, the crest on this jersey is more important than the name on the back of the jersey. I want you guys to understand this is about team, not yourself. Vancouver can't win at home. With all these goal scores, they're just not winning at home, which has really put them in a tough situation. English Premier League. I don't understand what's happened in one city. I do have an explanation what's happened in the other. The 2 marquee legendary franchises in the English Premier League in soccer are Manchester City and Manchester United. City, which had a near unbeaten season a year ago, led by the great Norwegian Erling Haaland. They're not scoring goals and they're not winning games, which is really hard to believe. They have won only 8 of their first 17 games this season. Wow. But they've had so many injuries that everybody is defending and marking Haaland out of games now. He can't get good looks and shots because all the other support guys around him who'd also used to score aren't there because of injuries. Manchester United, I've never seen this before. I can't imagine what it's like to be in Manchester, England, because that's the most important thing in that city, not the industry, not the beauty, not the history. It's Man U. They have won only 6 of 17 games. Manchester United is in 13th place in the English Premier League. That's Man U. You know, that's not Ipswich Town or one of these teams that just got promoted. It's about to get relegated back out. This is Man U. That's really stunning. And soccer, MLS is coming here in February to San Diego. San Diego FC just stockpiled their roster. They had the 1st and 9th pick in the MLS draft. They made one trade, flipped the pick, got more. They drafted an 18-year-old, 6'4" teenage sensation from Cal Santa Barbara. His name is Manu Duhai. I don't know that he's going to make the big team early on, but I've never seen a 6'4" guy who can run. I saw a video of this kid. This is a 18-year-old freshman at Cal Santa Barbara. They picked a defender from the University of Washington, Ian Pitcher. He's got great credentials. Washington Husky Soccer. That's a national brand. Picked up Harrison Burdos, a defender from North Carolina Charlotte. They've also acquired 4 MLS veterans at midfield and on defense. And, of course, they have Chucky Lozano, who comes from Mexico to be one of their snipers up front. So they're putting together a really diverse roster for San Diego FC, the MLS team that makes its debut in Major League Soccer in February. John, topics on the table. Go anywhere you want.
I'm excited about San Diego FC. I think this is going to be really cool for San Diego.
I think the biggest challenge to me is you're a coach. and you're bringing players in from Portugal, and you're bringing players in from Mexico, and you're bringing players in from Denmark and from the Congo and these college kids. How do you communicate? Because they all come from different backgrounds. That to me, what a challenge that is.
Oh yeah, yeah. But soccer is an international sport. I'm sure they're going to find a way to communicate with everybody. But I think it's a great thing for San Diego. So I'm fired up. I want to follow these guys. Maybe a little rough first couple of years, but I think it's going to be good. The Lakers situation, you talked about trading Rui Hachimura and a draft pick to the Wizards. Like if I'm the Wizards, I take that deal in a minute. That's a sweet deal for them.
Kuzma, that's an established shooting forward.
Yeah, no, yeah, but the deal is that the Wizards need more first round picks. They need more talent. And Rui Hachimura, I think, has more to his game that we haven't seen with the Lakers.
And he came from Washington.
Wasn't that funny? Because Kuzma came from the Lakers. So it just seems like they're just trying to find a way to find the complementary pieces to go with LeBron and AD. And is Kuzma the guy? I don't know. I mean, you were talking earlier that they were going to go to the Wizards to try to get the shot blocking center.
Yeah, Valanciunas. But now they're talking to Utah to get Kessler, who I like. And they're talking to Portland. Robert Williams is he's a part-time starter, part-time backup, but he's a bruiser. He started his career with the Celtics. He's in Portland, but he's been covering from injury. So they're going to change something, I think, before the trade deadline in Lakerland.
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny that we got the high-speed sports wire, we got Lakers and hockey on here. I think it's fantastic that we cover everything in the world of sports.
Yes, with apologies out there. We do sports talk the way it should be done on this podcast. Hope you enjoy it. Okay, it's your turn to take it over. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you across San Diego. You got projects for 2025. Think you need materials. These are the guys to do business with. If you want ideas, hey, they help me. Hey, dumbass, why are you picking that paint color on your wall for your family room? I thought it was green. He said, no, that's brown. I'm colorblind. That's the explanation for me. But, colorblind, good-looking, left-handed. There's so few of us out there. But anyhow, DIXIELINE can be your best friend. They will be your consultant. Just ask him what he's done in his castle. DIXIELINE Lumber. John, fans forum. You think you got a few people here got opinions? Look at the number of comments with a star next to them. Go ahead.
Yeah, a ton of them on here. So let's go here to Jason. He says, Lou Brock was a symbol of great base stealing, but today I am the greatest of all time. Rip Rickey.
I'd never forgot the night he broke the record, and Brock was there, and they came out, and Brock was going to salute him out on the field, and Rickey's standing there holding the base over his head. And Rickey himself says, I am the greatest of all time. Not even paid attention to Lou Brock. Maybe he didn't remember who Lou Brock was.
Well, there's still a lot of baseball fans that are angry at Rickey about that. They thought it was disrespectful to Lou Brock. Apparently, he had a speech ready for the two of them, but he just got so caught up in the moment that he forgot to break out the speech and to acknowledge Lou Brock. But it's interesting how Rickey he just obliterated Lou Brock's record.
Yeah.
And I don't know, is anyone ever going to steal that many bases? Maybe now with the only 2 or 3 pickoff rule, maybe that's going to give some other base stealers a chance to maybe get near Rickey.
I remember interviewing Maury Wills, who was elite.
Oh yeah.
And Maury talked about the wear and tear factor of doing that. And you think Rickey did this for 24, 25 years. The wear and tear factor never impacted Rickey.
Isn't it great too? Because when he retired from MLB, he still kept playing independent ball. He was playing even in some adult leagues here in San Diego with a bunch of beer league guys, and he just loved the game.
Yeah.
And he appreciated the game, had deep respect for the game, and he knew the history. Like you were talking about throwing the glove there in the outfield. What a unique guy! And did you see the interview he had on the MLB Network TV show where they have that little miniature wiffle ball field out there? Mm-hmm. And they was talking with Harold Reynolds, and he was asking him, when you're on second base, what are you looking for? And he said, I'm looking at the left elbow of a right-handed pitcher because they have to turn to make the throw. And Harold Reynolds was like, I've never heard that before, So Rickey was a mad scientist on the bases. I mean, what a guy, what an accomplished guy. And by the way, I've been doing this the last 10 or 15 years, is that when I go to a restaurant and I have to leave my name, or if a Starbucks, you got to leave your name. I always leave the name Rickey. And then I just like to hear the people say, table for 2 for Rickey, and it just makes me feel good.
Do they identify you with Rickey Henderson or with Branch Rickey or Ricky Ricardo?
Well, I think Ricky Ricardo, but I don't think the people that worked there really understood it. My family would always kind of give me like a weird nod, but Rickey deserves the love, and it's just a fun name to use in that situation.
Okay. Thank you for the input. Next topic.
Okay, let's just a couple of quick ones here. This is from John. It says, Merry Christmas, Son John.
Thank you.
All right. And then Manuel says, you're bleeping brilliant.
I keep complimenting him on that all the time.
Yeah, you do. Okay, let's go here to Emmanuel. Merry Christmas, Lee and John. Tell me which college bowl besides the playoffs will be must-watch TV.
Oh, my goodness. I don't know. Everything, because of the playoffs, everything becomes secondary.
Yeah.
It's like it's not really important. I mean, I was so excited with the upcoming Holiday Bowl. And then Washington State loses its quarterback. Johnny Mateer jumps to Oklahoma. Washington State's lost 20 players. The coordinator quit. He went to Oklahoma. The quarterback coach quit. He went to Oklahoma. And then the head coach quit and went to Wake Forest. I mean, they're in such disrepair at Washington State, because I thought Washington State, Syracuse, Johnny Mateer against Kyle McCord, 2 guys that just throw the ball over the field. I thought that was going to be a phenomenal matchup in the tradition of Holiday Bowl quarterback derbies, and it's not. So that's a good question. Now obviously Oregon, Ohio State, a lot of people forget this. The second round, those games will be played actually in the big bowl games. Ohio State, Oregon's in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I don't know. The rest of the bowls, to me, just have kind of lost the luster and kind of gotten shoved aside by the fact that John Riley wants a 12-team playoff. I'm blaming you.
I want a 16 or a 32-team playoff, and take those smaller bowl games and make them the early round of those tournaments. But to your point, yeah, I'm kind of wondering what those other bowl games are like. Are people going to show up? Are people going to watch on TV? But let's just go back to the playoffs for a minute. You said that the TV viewership was down for the playoff games. Like,
how could that be?
Well, because the NFL was on Saturday. That was just mind blowing. I didn't understand that.
NFL doesn't care about the NCAA.
Well, you think they would have some respect?
Now they're playing on Friday nights. They don't give a bleep about high school football in different pockets of the country either.
What was interesting is they always had Thursday night football, and they left Friday alone for high school.
Past tense.
But going back to the TV numbers, if Texas has a game, like a regular game, they're getting at least 3 million viewers on their network, right?
Yeah. How did they get 3.6? That's hard for me to believe.
Yeah. I mean, you think it'd be even more than that, but I mean, to me, these games are huge. I thought they were great successes. I want to see them more at neutral fields. I want to expand the field so we don't get any bitching and crying from Miami or Alabama. Get them in there and let's get it on.
You got too much March Madness in your blood. That's the issue. I mean, you think there's another George Mason upset against North Carolina, aka March Madness, and that could be duplicated in college football. No, I don't think so.
Well, that's what we need to find out. We need to give these teams a chance to prove you wrong, because we see those kinds of upsets in the regular season. Appalachian State beats Michigan. I mean, all kinds of those crazy situations. And in these playoff games with everything on the line, anything could happen on any given Saturday.
Okay. Next question.
Okay, let's go here to Liberty. He says, any Angels news?
Now, it's been quiet this week. It's interesting to me that they let Sandoval walk out the door. They did not, offer to try to sign him. But again, he's coming off surgery, and I guess that's got something to do with it. They were just not willing to commit $25 million over the next 2 years, because that's what he wound up getting when he signed in Boston. So Boston's kind of rebuilt their pitching staff with a snap of the fingers by getting Sandoval and getting Walker Buehler. And, of course, Giolito has been cleared now to go to spring training. He was a pretty good pitcher with the White Sox before he got hurt. But, I mean, the Angels, I think, as of now, between major league signings and what they've done some free agent stuff at AAA, I think they've got 9 acquisitions. But they're all at Dollar General. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I don't want to insult the Angels anymore, but they're shopping at Dollar General.
Well, they are marching to the beat of their own drum. You know, they have their own agenda, which is obviously very different than the Yankees or the Mets and the Dodgers. But, you know, right now we're so focused on, you say, the first tier and even the second tier free agents finding homes. But once you get those big names off the board, there's going to be even more. So the Angels will dive in. And I think that's when we're going to see the Padres finally start to make some moves.
But if you're an Angel fan and you're sales pitching me that, Lee, check your email, we just signed Charlie Morton, age 41.
Did they sign him?
No, but I'm saying that's that next tier down. So I should get excited about a 41-year-old pitcher at an ERA of almost 5. That's the next acquisition we should get excited about.
The Angels are doing their own weird thing. I mean, Artie needs to sell a team, get some legit ownership, make some real investments. But at least they seem to be sort of kind of trying.
Well, they have to, because they lost 99. Please call me when you sign and make a trade for Nolan Arenado. Do something with credibility to reignite the marketplace and make you a better team, because I don't get it right now. I may like Kevin Newman. I may like what they've acquired as rentals. Kyle Hendricks was at Wrigley Field, was a really good pitcher till he had shoulder problems. Hasn't been the same pitcher in the last year and a half. But that's the gift under the tree for Angel fans. Dollar General, clean up aisle 3. Next topic.
Okay, next topic. Okay, let's go here to Richard. Fans Forum. He says Teoscar Hernandez holdup with LA is the deferrals. He's not on board. How much more can the Dodgers defer? I feel LA is starting to abuse this method. Time for MLB to make guidelines?
Well, baseball said no, they don't have a problem. But Rob Manfred said this past week at the owners' meetings that you can only do this for so many players. You can't do it for everybody. They've got 7 guys they owe deferred money to starting in 2028 through 2046. So how many more deferrals you're going to do? Because as we would attest to, when the wife does it with a credit card, you got to pay the credit card bill somewhere down the road. And Dodgers are going to have a lot of credit card bills to pay over an 18-year span because of all these deferrals. You know, maybe they're of the theory that we're not going to pay him 3 years, $90 million. And because he had a great year last year, but maybe that was an aberration year. You know, the year prior in Seattle, not that good. So we'll find out. I mean, there's still other players out there for them. That's why they're talking to some other people.
Teoscar Hernandez is a good guy.
Yeah.
And he really appreciated and valued his experience with the Dodgers because he wanted to win. And he played where? Toronto and Seattle, I think, right? So, but as far as the deferrals, I agree here with Richard. They need to, you can't have a salary cap and then defer the salary. It just sort of violates the whole idea of a salary cap. It's like a loophole. So I think you've got to, if you're going to have deferrals, then you've got to be able to move those dollars forward into your salary cap situation. So you're feeling the weight of that whole salary in the years that you have that player. But if you want to actually just put the payment schedule on a credit card, well, that's their own business.
We'll see if baseball comes to the table and says this might not be in the best interest of all 30 teams. Might be in the Yankees and Dodgers and Mets' best interest to be able to creatively defer, but it's not in the best interest of all the other teams in baseball. But the other thing is, John, you got to get Tony Clark and the union to sign off on anything that impacts the structure of the collective bargaining agreement, how you configure luxury taxes, etc. So you got to get the union. And last I checked, the union's not interested in capping anything or, no. Union's fighting them on the luxury tax right now. So to get the union to agree about deferrals, because that impacts the player's ability to move from team to team. That's a tough call.
Yeah, I mean, because Ohtani certainly likes those deferrals. That's going to work well for him. Okay, let's keep moving. Let's go here to Raul. Just a big shout out. SDFC. People are fired up, Lee.
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, MLS is viewed very differently now than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, et cetera. But this is expansion team, and there's not a lot of household names there. There's a lot of unique and very different unknown names there, and this will be a unique challenge for this coaching staff to see how exactly good this can be. It is fascinating to me that SDFC launches right in the midst of the disaster of what's happened to the San Diego Wave, the National Women's Soccer League franchise, which just came off a miserable season, controversial season. Coaches get fired, team president is removed. Players retired. Players are cut loose. And they didn't win any games, hardly to speak of. The back half of the season, a disaster. So suddenly San Diego Wave has now got a competitor here that they're going to have to address, because there'll be a push in excitement because of SDFC in MLS.
San Diego's a soccer town. San Diego gets great soccer TV ratings for the World Cup and a lot of other big tournaments. San Diego can support both SDFC and the Wave because the audiences are a little bit different. You know, they're not a perfect overlap. The question I have is San Diego FC the real deal official name, or is it still a placeholder?
No, that's it. The logo is the logo, and they're doing a lot of stuff in the community, etc. You know, lost in all this conversation, I just don't quite understand ownership. They don't market the program. Legendary San Diego Sockers, indoor soccer. Once upon a time, that was a sellout at the old sports arena. And obviously it's not at this time, it's not in the sports arena. They've moved to the new arena up in Oceanside, but they don't market the product, and they've got some good players. Craig Childs has just been an established superstar in the indoor league, but nobody talks about the indoor league because now they're in a bunch of second level markets. Not San Diego per se, but that's too bad, because San Diego Soccer's back in the day, Ron Newman and those guys, that's a legendary franchise. It just, unfortunately, it just doesn't get marketing and awareness at all.
Julie V. It was some good times at the
Stevie
sports arena.
Thungle.
Yeah, it was really good times there. But it kind of makes you think, now that soccer is more accepted as an American sport, it makes you think that the focus is going to be on the pitch, on the real game, rather than on the indoor game.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, next question.
Next question. Okay, we're going to go here to Schickster. He says, do you think the Jets have a shot at the Cup?
He's talking Winnipeg. This is from the old Canada Network. Well, they had the great start. They've really tailed off a little bit, but as long as you've got great goaltending, and that's really what they've got, I think Winnipeg is still really a dangerous side. Now you got to keep Sheffley and these other guys totally healthy. You don't want to have major injuries the second half of the season, but they're good. But so is Edmonton. Edmonton right now is rocking and rolling. And out here in the Pacific, Vancouver, if it ever gets its act together, that was a scary team last year in the playoffs. And the LA Kings just keep adding, and the Kings are having themselves, for the most part, a pretty good season, even though goaltending is not what's carrying the team. They got a lot of snipers, so there's a lot of good hockey teams out here in the Western Conference. And the East Coast Rangers are just upside down. They got so many internal attitude problems, and Boston's not Boston anymore. Maybe the coaching changed real early in the season, and maybe age has caught up to them. Florida and Tampa, they're still really, really good. But we got a half a season to go. But yeah, Winnipeg, if they keep their guys on the ice to go with Connor Hellebuck in goal, Winnipeg that's going to be a tough out during the course of postseason. But we got a lot of puck to be played between now and then.
It's a bit of a tangent, but over the weekend, I was in the Shark Tank in San Jose, and that's when the Aztecs played Cal. And when I went to that game, that's a nice arena,
sure,
right there in downtown San Jose, and it's right near the airport and everything else. And
they're in a major rebuild.
It's been they were good when they started, and they've just been terrible for so long.
They traded all their players away. I mean, Joe Thornton was sent packing, and superstar defenseman Britt Burns was dealt away. I mean, they felt they could not pay everybody $9 million a year, so they just jettisoned all these guys. I mean, they got 2 high draft picks this past year that are both playing. But when we're playing 19 and 20-year-old kids, that's hard. All you need to do is pick up the phone and call the Anaheim Ducks about how hard it is to play all your draft picks at the major league level immediately. And that's what San Jose's attempting to do.
Yeah. Well, hockey season's rocking and rolling. Yeah. Okay, let's go here. Now, this is a multi-parter here, and this is from Acres of Movies, and he says, hi, Lee, from Baja to the Canadian Rockies, in town, out of town, from 690, Lemon Grove, Escondido, Encinitas. Now, here's his real question. He says, Lee, who will the Bears hire as their next head coach? Thanks.
I think the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson.
Hey.
Chicago is a unique storyline. You've always heard me say, when these coaching jobs open, for the most part, somebody coming in the front door to be their new head coach, it's like going to 3 Mile Island. There's nothing left and there's nobody around. Well, the different scenario, the Chargers head coaching job involved the kid Justin Herbert. Caleb Williams is the cornerstone of the future. He's got a year under his belt. making a lot of big plays, making a ton of mistakes. Now, they're going to have cap space. They got to fix the offensive line. Something's amiss because last year that offensive line was pretty good, and they've been terrible this year, and the defense has been kind of up and down and shoddy. But I hear Ben Johnson from Detroit is the hot guy, and that's a hot job because the quarterback is in place. So there's a quick answer. And Akers, the real phrase about my talk show was, pick a topic, get off your ass, and get on the phones. Thank you.
Raiders line, ladies line. The good times, man. I mean, from back in that day.
Out of jail on bail. Call now.
Yeah, here we go. Okay, let's go here to David. And he goes, what are your thoughts on John Seidler, oldest brother of Peter Seidler, taking over the Padres?
I was told the move was made to defy and deny the insinuations the Seidler family wants to check out. The franchise is at an all-time popularity high, record revenues, record attendance. There was a theory and undercurrent within the community. The Seidlers are going to sell the thing because now they can profitize at the greatest amount of money. And now the decision to put John Seidler, Peter's older brother, on board, and John Seidler's only generic comment was, we will continue to operate this as we have, which was, fairly high payroll for this market size. So that's good news in terms of stability going forward with Seidler equity, obviously is the one paying the bill. But the scorecard says as of this hour, the Padres have done zero in terms of player acquisitions with a roster that many thought we might get some upgrades or maybe there's some changing, maybe they reallocate money. But it's good because the Seidler family wants to stay in Major League Baseball. And there had been an undercurrent, a theme that they're gonna cash in their chips because the price tag on the franchise is an all-time high, but they say no.
Well, the Padres haven't done zero, right? They re-signed Taylor Wade.
Tyler Wade.
Tyler Wade. I get those names always confused. And I'm just joking.
Difference maker? No. Everybody's got to have a 25th man on the roster.
Yeah, that's what he is. Yeah, I'm just joking about
that. That's okay.
Okay. But when Peter Seidler was here, and he said, that this is going to be a team that's going to be part of the Seidler family for generations. And it just sounded so great when he said that.
No, and they backed it up with dollars.
And he backed it up. So now my question is, now that we move away from Eric Katsenda, who was, their joke called him Eric Cut Spending, So do you think John Seidler is going to raise the payroll to Peter Seidler levels?
No. He said, we're going to operate the way we're operating, which to me reinserts the philosophy, your payroll, AJ Preller, is $170 million. Make it fit, make it work. So, but it's not going to be sold. We're not going to have strange people coming in the front door. I mean, we won't have Tom Werner and the terrible 15 that bought the franchise and immediately declared fire sale. That's not going to happen. Seidler Equity is going to keep it because the community has supported it. The product's been pretty good. Now the window's right here. Got to be in World Series next year because otherwise I think beyond that, we're starting to look at age players with long-term contracts that you can't move.
Yeah, I agree. They got to get their act together, but it's nice to see that this ownership situation seems to be stabilizing.
Yes.
And I think that's really good for the team.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to keep moving here. Let's go to Fiegel. He actually has two questions. So the first one is, new rules just beg for asterisks. Somebody needs to come up with different record books for different sports eras. And I think he's talking about Rickey and the sporting steals.
Well, a different era, different type player, different game. Maybe he's making reference to the rules that changed the game, banning the shift, the ghost runner at second base, the pitch clock, etc., to, quote, improve the game. But it's hard. This debate spins back to what happened, I don't know, about a year and a half ago when baseball announced Negro League stars from yesteryear, from the 1920s. Here are their statistics. And my response was, boy, that's pretty tough to incorporate all the Negro League statistics because they were playing travel teams. They were playing all different types of squads. How can you equate those statistics to the guys who are actually playing Major League Baseball? And Major League Baseball said these were the great players of that era on the other street corner who never were allowed to play in the major leagues. So we're going to take them and take their statistics that we had access to, and they're going to be their numbers going into the Hall of Fame. Maybe that's what he's making reference to.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I think you got to include everybody in the record book, And then there could be asterisks. There could be all kinds of other footnotes to explain the situation in different eras. But you got to include everybody. But I think now with this pickoff rule, I think we're going to see the stolen base numbers start to increase.
It did last year. They bumped up.
Right.
Yeah, stolen base attempts and stolen bases because of the limitations, how many times you go over there. You threw over there twice, John, I'm going.
Yeah, exactly.
Good luck to you.
Yeah, exactly. But think about like how many stolen bases did Rickey Henderson have? Like 1,200 something, or was it 1,400? I mean, if you stole 50 bases a year for, I'm trying to do my math here, for 24 years, that would be 1,200. I mean, nobody can do that.
1,406 stolen bases.
That's what it is. So, I mean, that's just a remarkable number of steals. So, yeah, well, I saw another stat. They said that it took Derek Jeter his whole lifetime of being with the Yankees to barely pass Rickey's stolen base number for the brief number of years he was actually there.
Yeah. Well, Derek Jeter's a different player.
Yeah.
I mean, Rickey was nickels, dimes, singles, doubles, and lots of stolen bases and walks.
Rickey gets on.
Rickey himself hit home runs too.
Yeah, and he loved to pimp the home runs.
Oh, yeah.
Just love that guy. Okay, but here's the other comment from Flegel. He says, what was the decision on moving the Thursday show to Friday? I like the idea.
Well, we're just kicking around ideas. Actually, we had scheduling problems. This guy is painting rooms and all that. And by the way, your choice of colors is kind of absurd. So we had to move studios around, and then I had doctor's appointments. I just had a lot of things going on. We're still debating. I don't know. John was going to come up with something. I don't know where you put it in the chat box. We were actually do a fans forum mini poll. Would you rather see us on Thursdays at 1 p.m. or would you rather move us to Friday at 1 p.m. and then you can go drinking after the show is over to kick off the Great Sports Weekend? But once we get the room painted and all that, maybe we'll put a box up in the chat box. I don't know how to do it, but John will figure it out. Which show would you like, Thursdays at 1 or Fridays at 1?
Well, you've been bugging me to get the live polling on during the show, during the live stream, and that's something we need to do. But as far as the Thursday or Friday, originally I thought Thursday was the perfect day, when we started this off. But Friday's not a bad day either.
We've gotten such response on Friday. Said, gee, maybe we should rethink that one.
Yeah, I mean, so you kind of bookend the weekend, going in and then coming out of the weekend. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, your wife asked me, speaking of bad decisions, why the hell would you paint a corner of the man cave yellow?
This is a bedroom in the house, and there's nothing on the wall.
I'm talking about the man cave.
Well, the man cave,
with all the stuff on the walls.
Oh, well, the man cave is sweet. It's got all my baseball card collections and everything in there.
We'd do it in the man cave. Maybe people wouldn't pay attention to the show. You'd be reading all the stuff on the walls.
But the man cave has wood flooring, and you think the acoustics are bad in here. It'd be horrible in there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put a curtain around here, kind of like the curtain we had before, kind of the cool backdrop, and then we'll kind of let our graphics do the talking, as far as the visuals.
You'll be like the Main Masters on channel 306 on my TV, where they renovate and they tear houses down and rebuild them. That's what you're doing here at the castle.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to figure out a way to do it like on a budget of under $100, like on some of those shows.
We'll let you know when we come up with this fans forum chat box for mini polls. We'll try to work on that. Go ahead, John. Next one.
So much going on. Okay, Chris says, on the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me another bleeping podcast with John and Lee.
Well, we're rolling. We got this thing rolling. Hell, I don't know what we're doing technically. He does that. He doesn't know what the hell I'm talking about. I do all the topics and the graphics, etc. But we've kind of really hit on something. Should we tell them about the research piece you did? This is phenomenal. So John and I have been on maybe almost 18 months doing this podcast twice a week. We just kind of rolled it out and it got better and better. So John did a research piece. We have had 2.1 million people sample the podcast, our mini clips that we put out on social media, and my one man's opinion columns. Think about that. 2.1 million people in 18 months watch this podcast or sit at home and do this and read or listen to what we're doing. To me, it's a phenomenal thing.
Yeah, and actually that number might be conservative, because when, let's just say, for example, this live stream is going out on Twitter or on X and on Facebook, but each of those gets hundreds, if not thousands of views. So when you add it all up, it's probably even more. And I think that 2.1 million was over a span of like 6 to 9 months. So bottom line is, to the audience, Thank you. I mean, you're helping us build this, and we're glad we're able to provide value and to get Hacksaw back on the air.
And like I say, we do sports talk the way it should be done, at least the way we think it should be done. And 2.1 million people obviously like what we're doing.
Yeah, hell yeah. Okay. Hey, we got a newbie here. This is William, and he says, I don't know who wants it more, the NCAA or the sports writers. It was the worst weekend of college football ever. Get rid of the playoffs and get the bowl games as it was 30 years ago.
Well, you're trying to reinvent the world. And I'm sorry, the 18-cent per gallon gasoline isn't coming back, and the 2-cent stamp to mail something, that's not coming back either. What I think John and I kind of agree is we'd sure like to see the first round of the playoffs held at bowl sites. First round Holiday Bowl, that would be good for the Holiday Bowl. It'd be great for the community. People at Penn State would be pissed because 102,000 wouldn't be able to get tickets to come here. But I think that they're going to have to evaluate that, because what they have to do, they've damaged the bowls by virtue of the playoffs. Whether it was a 2-team, then it became 4, now it's become, according to John Riley's memo, 12. I think that's hurt the bowl games. So what you do is you solve that issue. Then you have to solve the issue of how many teams. 12? Is that too many? Or is going to have somebody unhappy. If you go to 18, then you're going to have blowouts, because there's a hell of a big difference between Oregon and Ohio State and Boise State and William and Mary or whomever would get into the bottom echelon. So it's tough. Is it all about the money? It's always about the bank. And I don't know if that's good or that's bad. My private concern, we have haves in college football, and we got a hell of a lot of have-nots that are really suffering, that don't have money, whose players are being stolen every year by the upper echelon. I just don't know in the big picture if that's good for college football. You're looking at me sideways, so go ahead and respond.
It was playoff. I mean, granted, Saturday, the games were not as entertaining as we had hoped for. I mean, yeah, blowout, the worst weekend of college football ever. I don't know if I would go that far, but I think the playoff is a great thing. I mean, granted, tell the NFL to not schedule any of their games on the college football playoff weekend, but I think it's a wonderful thing that they're opening this up and getting more in, because when there was no playoff and they had the fictional number one, and then you'd have 2 teams that say we're both number one, and no one ever played each other. And that was a bunch of baloney. And then you get even to the 2 or the 4 team playoff. It's just not enough. This is like a transparency thing. It's like, let the decision happen on the field. And even if some games are lopsided, it doesn't matter. It's unquestioned, who deserves the championship.
Okay. You just heard what he said. He's the one's making the rules. If you don't like it, take it out on him.
Remember it was like 84. Remember BYU won the national championship and they were undefeated, and everyone's like, BYU, they're playing the WAC, and that doesn't matter. I mean, should they have had a chance to prove it on the field, or did they get the mythical championship? It's better to have BYU, assuming in 84 they had the bracket, to put them out on the field and then prove that you're as good as you think you are.
The flip side of the argument is, if we exclude the Boise's and the BYU's because they're not good enough, are people going to get tired of just seeing the same old? You're getting tired of looking at Dabo Swinney from Clemson and looking at Georgia and looking at Texas and looking at Ohio State. If it's the same old, I think there's some truth in that too.
But if as long as you get like the top 16 teams or the top 32 teams in America, then the Boise States and the BYU equivalents are all going to be in the mix. And so you give them a fair shot, a transparent process. So you don't think that the system is rigged. They play it on the field, and that's where it's decided.
Okay. Thank you for the input. Now you got him all excited and angry. Go ahead. Next one.
Okay. Let's go here to Larry's Sports Talk. He says, San Diego is just not a sports town, Hacksaw. There have been multiple market studies on this, including one in 2022 by Stan Kroenke.
Well, the reality is it's a major league market that supported baseball. It was a major league NFL market that supported the Chargers till the greedy ownership ripped the franchise out of here. Now, it's different, but there are other major league markets. I mean, Buffalo doesn't have baseball. Buffalo doesn't have basketball. Buffalo's got the Bills and a downtrodden Sabres team, but yet that's viewed as major league. So do you base a great market on number of teams? You base a great market on support. I think San Diego's a solid market, but sadly, I don't think we'll ever see the National Football League again, only because of no stadium and what ownership did to vacate the market. Unless somebody rich comes in here and is going to pay for the stadium and buy a team or pay for an expansion team. There will be expansion. The NFL is going to go 2 more teams, maybe within the next 5 years, but I don't see it happening here, sadly.
My new Aztec correspondent, Mike, likes to make this very same point. He doesn't think San Diego is a sports town. And I strongly disagree. I mean, when the San Diego has a team that's a winner, they fill up the arena, they fill up the stadium. And but people have options here to spend their time. It's not like we all live in Lincoln, Nebraska, and the only thing we live for is Cornhusker football. I mean, there's a lot of other things going on here, but we talked about how San Diego gets great ratings for soccer, gets great ratings, even for the NFL, compared to a lot of other markets. So San Diego is just sort of this weird thing that we're isolated in this lower left corner of America, and we're on 4 boundaries, Camp Pendleton, the desert, and Mexico and the Pacific Ocean. We're also kind of like an island, so our market size is limited, but it's a sports town.
I think it's a sports town. Is it a great sports town? No, because I think half the heart was cut out when Spanos took the Chargers out of here. And I don't think the community's ever recovered. But baseball filled that role. I mean, to draw the amount of people they're drawing, and I'll recall the first conversation I ever had with Peter Seidler and Ron Fowler was, this is a great baseball market. You put a winner on the field, you'll get everybody in San Diego because they want to go part of the event. And you're getting all the transplanted people who got deported from Boston and Chicago and wherever else. They're out here too that are baseball fans. And the end result, Padres, PENN contenders, 3.3 million in a small market. Yeah. That's amazing.
So what other market would you say is a good sports market other than the obvious New York, Boston, Chicago?
Well, Pittsburgh is a phenomenal football market. No doubt about that. Seattle's a really great football market. Seahawks and Washington Huskies. I don't know how to rate Texas because the Metroplex is so bloody big. And the Rangers haven't been great. You do have Jerry World.
They just won the World Series.
America's team. I know, but that's an isolated one-time occurrence. Chicago, that's tradition because your father was a Cubs fan and his father was a Cubs fan and your great-grandfather was a Cubs fan in 1920. So, yeah, Chicago, there's just a lot of great history there.
Bless you.
Somebody boo.
Well, it's funny. You can even criticize LA because obviously LA is a sports town with the Dodgers and the Lakers, but they have so many teams. The teams at the bottom of the list, people don't pay attention to.
Well, it's a legacy town because of the history of Jerry Buss Lakers and the O'Malleys at Dodger Stadium. Now the odd years that the LA Kings were in the Stanley Cup, they got tremendous hockey support and everything focused on there. But back in the day, the John McKay era, USC, even the Pete Carroll era, Southern Cal, there was pretty good support. But that's such a mega market in terms of you can have a lot of franchises that draw support because of the interest of the fans because there's so many people to draw from.
Well, what makes a good sports market? I mean, obviously you need successful teams and fans that show up, but I think you need to have a media that is really engaged and really kind of gets the fans stirred up and gives them really quality content. But what other markings of a good sports town? What would it be?
I think legacy and history.
Okay.
I mean, for all the brutal years, the curse of the Bambino, Boston Red Sox, they still supported them at Fenway Park. And then they finally broke the curse of the Bambino and went to the World Series a whole bunch of times. And the same thing with the Chicago Cubs getting to the World Series. So I think legacy and history going back decades upon decades, I think that's got a lot to do with it too.
Yeah, I think that's why the 49ers and the Giants and the Warriors, that whole marketplace there is a good sports market.
Exactly. Okay, let's do a couple of social media here.
Okay, social media. Okay, let's go over here to social media and we'll get everyone involved. Let's talk about the Mets. And what did I just do there? I got to get rid of that one other part of the screen. My bad. Okay, there it is. This is from Watch Warrior. He says, Juan Soto is an injury-prone billion-dollar bust. He blames everyone when it's him who has character issues. He didn't get along with Manny Machado and Aaron Judge are way better players than Juan Soto. He's an egoist and an overachiever. He was injured last year with San Diego and tried playing with a calf issue. The Mets just took on the Titanic and their ship is going to sink.
Well, dude does have a lifetime 285 batting average. Dude has hit 201 home runs in a small amount of time. So I think he's a really good player offensively, but there's a lot of holes in his game. I mean, I have seen video of him playing defense in both left and right at Yankee Stadium. I say, wow, he's playing out there like there's snakes or landmines out there in the outfield, running around trying to make plays. He doesn't run the bases well. He's heavy-legged, and he thunders and all that. He's a good player, but is he a $51 million a year player? I don't think so. He's awful self-centered, and that to me is a turnoff in a clubhouse. But that being said, he got the payday, and we'll see what the New York Mets look like. I wrote a column a week ago about Soto and the Mets. I call him Mr. Moneybags. And I said, has he really paid attention to what the hell he just did? He left a World Series team to go to a team that's got no pitching staff at all and does not have a lot of established stars aside from him and Francisco Lindor. And what if Pete Alonso leaves? And Alonso's talking to a whole pile of people now because that second level of free agent's going to start signing, and he's the best free agent first baseman that's still on the open market. So he got his money. Hope he enjoys himself. Hope the dude doesn't hit 236 at Citi Field for a while because, boy, the New York media and the fans they'll be on him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's going to have a target on his back, as far as his performance. But I think he is just he's lucky that he got to be a free agent this year. Mm-hmm. And in going back even a few years when Bryce Harper and Manny Machado signed, they signed for records. Every year it's a new record. So if Soto is $765 million, who's the next bright, free agent 2 or 3 years down the line? We're going to see $1 billion player soon.
If the marketplace can afford $1 billion player. Because if they put a luxury tax or a hard salary cap, which is being discussed, if they put that into place, that's going to limit the amount you give, because you can't give all the money to one guy and then hope you can have a star roster when you don't have a lot of other money because the one guy is getting $51 million per season. But you're a capitalist. You don't give a bleep.
Well, it's just there's so much money going through the sport. The players deserve an appropriate proportion of that. And so I'm glad to see them getting their take, but it just keeps going up. And I don't think it's going to stop.
My late father would just lean across the table and pop you in the mouth. He's the one that got the letter from Connie Mack. You are property of the Philadelphia Athletics.
Property.
We own you until we want to trade you, release you, or till you die.
Now, doesn't that just sound ridiculous?
Well, 1938.
Yeah, but
that was before the Union.
Well, yeah. I mean, but just think about that in the context of the rest of the economy. When you get a job, you work at General Motors in the 30s. They don't say we own you and we have the right to trade you. I mean, that when Kurt Flood was calling this out, and it's like a form of indentured servitude. And I think that's a fair comparison.
If you're a capitalist, you don't give a crap.
Well, no, I give a crap, but people should get paid what they deserve. That's what I think.
Okay, I'm not going to argue anymore. I don't want to ruin the podcast, but you're bleeping wrong. But go ahead.
Okay,
a couple more here.
Let's talk about the Dodgers, and this is from Red Pill Brotherhood. No reason for the Dodgers to keep Buehler. They already have a rotation of Ohtani, Snell, Glasnow, Yamamoto, and then some combo of May, Gonsolin, Miller, or maybe bringing back Kershaw. LA should focus on getting Tio or Santander, and then maybe an infielder. Signing Tanner Scott would be smart for them.
Well, I think signing Tanner Scott that'd be theft. That would really be good. Now, what's the price tag? I mean, you earned $5.8 million last year. If you went to arbitration, if the Padres were to try to offer him arbitration, he'd get $8 million. I was told he wants $10 million. I'd give him $10 million because I think he's reliable. He's a workhorse out of the bullpen. I just don't know. I like Hernandez. He had a great year, but I don't like him to the point of 3 years, $90 million. And evidently those are the numbers he's running up the flagpole. That's a big issue. And the Orioles outfielder, he wants 5 years. I don't know. I'm going to give him 5 years. So we'll see. The Dodgers, they've got luxury because they do have a lot of kids in their farm system, and there's always the ability to make a trade. But it's not a bad ball club right now. It's a great ball club. They won the World Series, and they're going to get a lot of these injured guys back healthy. I felt bad because I thought Buehler was just a warrior, and he's always been that way. His career record's 47-22. And he survived 2 elbow surgeries. And even though last year he had a bad season, he threw 13 straight shutout innings. The most important time, it's the reason they won the World Series, in part because of his work on the mound. So I kind of felt bad the Dodgers didn't go harder, even on a 1-year contract. They didn't pay him state-of-the-art money, even on a 1-year deal for everything he did.
You know, this year was the year that I understood Walker Buehler as a warrior.
Yeah.
And I never really knew that about him. But he obviously had a lot of difficulties. He'd roll into the dugout and he'd start blowing up things, knocking over Gatorade cans and everything else. The Dodgers just have so many guys. There's going to be odd guys out, you know, and I think that's the case here with Buehler, because he was going to command what, 20, got 21, right? With the Red Sox. So I think, you know, Andrew Friedman's just got to say, you know, we can't keep everybody. So let's just flip Buehler, let him walk, and we've got plenty of other guys to fill in.
Still unsigned is Jack Flaherty. That's surprising to me.
Yeah.
And he's rock solid. Now, is he a tier 1 pitcher? No. But he's probably at the top of the tier 2s. But then again, you never know in the course of the negotiations, John. Is he asking for 5 years at $25 million per? I just don't think I give pitchers 5-year contracts. Now, he's fully bounced back. He was such a great young talent with the St. Louis Cardinals, and then he got hurt. And then he moved and he went to Baltimore and he just wasn't ready. And then he went to Detroit and he reinvented himself in Detroit. And then, because he's a walk free agent, they shipped him to the Dodgers. He pitched pretty damn well for the Dodgers from the trading deadline on. So, I mean, he's still unsigned, which I think he now becomes the marquee guy at the top of the second tier of pitchers. But I don't think it's a Dodger Stadium either.
See, I think the length of contract, we have to look at it different now, because it used to be you'd say, oh, yeah, a 5-year deal. Can he last 5 years? But I don't think that matters anymore, because, you know, Juan Soto is going to be, his contract goes to what, age 41. And then,
but it's different for a pitcher.
But the point is that they know in the final years of your contract, you're either not going to be on the team or your productivity is going to be in the tank. I think it's just a way that they can put a large total contract value on the table, and just saying that's your value for as long as you play. And they make the contracts longer in the time period so they can spread out the dollars from a luxury tax point of view. But you know, you look at these names, I'm very curious to see Dustin May come back. I love that guy. I think he's really talented, but he's hurt.
We're talking 2 major surgeries,
right? And
he had not come back from the second surgery, and then he had another setback in a different area, and he had to have a 3rd operation. So, you know, there's great reservations when you got as many pitchers as they've had that coming off surgery. You just don't know till they get out there and show that they can do it.
But you have confidence that they've proven it in the past. It's better than the Padres situation where your number 4 and 5 starters are like Waldron and Vasquez, you know, guys that you're just rolling the dice on.
Yep. Concur.
Okay.
Okay. Listen, we hope you have enjoyed our podcast. We're here Mondays. This week, because of the Christmas holiday, John's got to paint some more walls. We're going to do it on Friday. So this week, we'll be back here Friday at 1 p.m. And we hope you'll make an appointment post-Christmas. Bring some eggnog, and we'll talk sports then. And by Friday, we'll probably have more free agents to talk about in baseball. By Friday, we'll obviously lay the groundwork for weekend 2 of the college football playoffs. And by the weekend, we got the final 2 games, final 2 weeks of the NFL schedule. So, yeah, there'll be a lot of topics on the table that we're going to argue about, I guarantee you. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. Got projects for 2025. Think about these people. They are special. DIXIELINE Lumber. John, it's great that you and I cross paths. You're still wrong on some of these money issues, you bleeping capitalist, but love doing this podcast with you. And look at what you created. 2.1 million viewers over 18 months on this podcast. So some of us are doing the right things.
Yeah, this is great. The whole thing is great. You know, Hacksaw is back on the air, and I'm pleased to be part of this. And yeah, it's all good. And oh, by the way, today's what, the 23rd, right? So the stocking stuffers at DIXIELINE for that gift card. This is the perfect time for the last minute gift. You can roll in, get a gift card, put it in the stocking stuffer. That's a way to go.
Don't paint these studio walls yellow. I saw that shade of yellow you got.
Yeah, it's like an off-white, but I mean, I got to get like curtains in here because I think the acoustics are a little bit different. I don't know if you're listening or watching, if you could tell, but the sound's ricocheting on here a little bit.
Hey, listen, we thank you for being part of this podcast. Hope you'll tell everybody about what we're doing Mondays and Thursdays. Christmas week will be on this Friday at 1 p.m. John, have a Merry Christmas to you and your family. And to you, thanks for joining us. Merry Christmas from John and I and Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps.
Touchdown, San Diego!
For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.